Albert Bandura's social learning theory, brought to you by the Penguins, Josh, Sam, Kennedy, Brady, and Bailey.
A musician's 4-year-old daughter crawls onto a piano bench and places her hands on the keys. No one has explicitly shown her how to do this, so how did she learn? She learned through observation. It may seem obvious to us now, but there was a time when the primary theory of learned behavior was that humans learned only by direct reinforcement. That is, someone sitting down and showing you how to do something. We have since learned that this is not always the case. Albert Bandura is the well from which the idea of observational learning, called social learning theory, sprung. Born in Canada on December 4, 1925, to Eastern European immigrants, Bandura was the youngest and only son of 6 children. He grew up in a town of roughly 400 people, most of his education coming from either a one-room schoolhouse or exploring the environment around him at the encouragement of his parents. He discovered an interest for psychology at the University of British Columbia, and in 1951 received his master's from the University of Iowa. He went on to receive his PhD in 1952. In 1974, he was elected president of the American Psychological Association. He is currently a professor of psychology at Stanford University. Today, Bandura uses his theory to try and solve some of the biggest issues we have in the world today. He applies his research to medicine, education, sports, public health, and the status of women in our culture. Bandura works side by side with a colleague to see if his theory can be applied to improve health, such as increasing the use of birth control, and preventing diseases such as HIV. By doing these things, he is helping change lives of millions.
Albert Bandura once said, "Learning would be exceedingly laborious, not to mention hazardous, if people had to rely solely on the effects of their own actions to inform them what to do." Fortunately, most human behavior is learned observationally, through modeling. From observing others, one forms an idea of how new behaviors are performed, and on later occasions, this coded information serves as a guide for action.
Early experiment on learning of aggressive styles of behavior through modeling. Children watched a filmed adult perform novel aggressive acts toward a inflated doll, and the physical aggression was accompanied by novel hostile remarks. We later measured how much of this modeled aggression the children had learned just by watching. Now, the measurement of learning of aggression uses simulated targets rather than live ones. The model pummeled the doll with a mallet, flung it in the air, kicked it repeatedly, threw it down and beat it. It was once widely believed that seeing others vent aggression would drain the viewer's aggressive drive. As you can see, exposure to aggressive modeling is hardly cathartic. Exposure to aggressive modeling increased attraction to guns, even though it was never modeled. Guns had less appeal to children who had no exposure to the aggressive modeling. The children also picked up the novel hostile language.
The social learning theory includes 3 core concepts. The first concept is the basic idea that people can learn through observation. Bandura tested this idea with his now famous Bobo doll experiment. In his experiment, children would observe an adult acting violently and aggressively towards a Bobo doll. When left alone with the doll, the children began imitating the behavior they observed. Within this first concept, there are 3 basic models of observational learning. A live model, which involves an actual person demonstrating behavior. A verbal instructional model, which involves description and instructions. And a symbolic model, often referring to behavior observed in books, films, and television shows. The second concept of Bandura's social learning theory is that an individual's mental state is vital to their learning process. While most emphasis in traditional learning theories is put on external reinforcement, Bandura noted that large influence comes from internal factors, called intrinsic reinforcement. This could include things such as pride, satisfaction, and accomplishment. The third and final concept of Bandura's social learning theory is that learning does not necessarily lead to change in a behavior. In order for a behavior to be effectively learned, it needs to satisfy all components of what Bandura calls the modeling process. The modeling process includes attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. In order to learn a behavior, you must first and foremost be paying attention. You then must retain the information and be able to recall it later. When you are able to recall a behavior, you must be able to reproduce it and act it out yourself. Finally, you must have an external or intrinsic motivation to continue repeating the learned behavior in order for it to truly change your behavior. After learning about Bandura's social learning theory, our group wanted to show how our society is more likely to follow others' actions in order to fit in with those around us. We were able to show you this by demonstrating how one person will follow others around them even if they know that that action is incorrect. Bandura's theory truly changed the way we look at learning behaviors today, especially in the field of education. Teachers now realize that you cannot just teach something, you have to model it with appropriate behavior as well. This theory helps us to understand just a little bit more the process of the unknowable human brain.